Hello everyone and welcome to my new tutorial series on design patterns. In this series we're going to be talking about general design patterns that we can use for game programming. In this case, not all of the design patterns are limited to just games. We can use them for anything. So let's get right to it. We'll start off with the command design pattern. A simple way of looking at the command pattern is to think of it as an object-oriented version of a callback. So let's look at an example of a controller. A controller would have 4 buttons, and each button would be linked to a certain action. Now, if you're making your own game, you might think, well, what's the problem of hard coding it in? I mean, generally the buttons are going to be fixed, right? Well, not in all games. And not on all instances would that be the case. Let's say instead of a controller, you're using a keyboard. Every key will have a different meaning for different people. So here we can see what a hard-coded version would look like. If we go to code, it would look something like this. As you can see in the code, the actions are pretty much hard-coded, and it would be pretty hard to switch the actions on the fly. So let's get started by creating a new project. For this, we'll have to go to Visual Studio and create a new project. We're going to be needing C++, and let's choose Windows as platform, and what we need is either empty project, console app, or Windows Desktop Wizard, which I usually choose. Click next, and we'll do command_test, and I like to set it to desktop, and we'll press the create button. So what we want is a console app, empty project, and click OK. I'm going to go and copy some basic stuff that I had. We'll need to create a main.cpp, of course. And here's the basic input handler for our test program. So what we'll start with is an interface class, I guess you could call it, or it's also called an abstract class. So let's create one of those. So class, it will say I command, hence an interface. I'd like to say command in front, or the I in front, I mean. And we'll need to create a pure virtual function. Virtual, if I can write it. There we go. And I'll say void and say execute. There we go. Make it a pure virtual function. Oh, have to add a 0 in the end and a virtual destructor as well. There we go. Give it a body. There. Now, we basically created our command here, so we would be able to say I command, and it would be, of course, a pointer. It would say 1 is for jump command, and let's create all 4 of them. So what did we have? We had jump, fire gun, and what else? Swap weapon and melee attack. And there we go. Now, they don't really do anything at the moment. So let's create our functions. or our actual classes that do the actions. So in this case, we'll do class, and we'll say jump command, and we'll give it a public, or we'll let it inherit. I did not want to do that, but there we go. We'll inherit from I command. There we go. And we'll have to there we go. Implement the pure virtual function. And let's just, because we're not sure what to do yet, this is an example, let's just write out what it's going to do. std : cout, and say it's jumping. There we go. And there we go. So this would be for our jumping, and let's create one for, let's say, fire command, firing gun. Let's put a thing there as well, and let's keep going. And let's do our swap weapon command. Swapping weapon. And last but not least, we will go and say melee attack. There we go. And we'll say punching or something like that. Not the punching weapon. Okay, so now we have our 3 commands, and we can say no. We can create a new command and say one is jumping. Of course, we have to write new fire gun. There we go. And command, of course. And we keep going. And in this case, it's going to be swap weapon command. And last but not least, melee attack command. Okay, so now we have our 3 things, or our 4 commands. Now, I was thinking this name is probably not the best one, so let's say a button and b a b, what is it? Y button, I forget, what is it? Z? I don't, oh, x. A, B, Y, and X. There we go. And in this case, we would do if A, do stuff, else if, oh. So if this is A, we want to do A dot, or not dot, arrow execute. So now you can see that we're kind of obfuscating what we're executing. And this would be B. Let's make it even cleaner by doing it like this. And this would be B button. And of course I see that. So this would be B, and this would be Y, and this would be X. And of course we also need an else here. Okay, A, B, Y, and X. So now if we run our application, made a mistake somewhere. Did I? Oh, yeah, I did. There we go. One bracket too many. Okay. So as we can see, if I press A, it's jumping, which it should, right? Yeah. And if we go B, I'm firing a gun. And so the other ones will also work. X, Y. But what we could do is we can just replace those two, just the object that A button is, and instantly we're now firing gun with A instead of jumping. So now we've rebind our objects. Okay, so now we might want to add a little bit more of a game aesthetic to it. So let's go and create a game object, because we're eventually going to have to move a game object, we're not just running static commands. So what we're going to do is going to game, oh wait, class, of course, game. We're going to say game actor. Just give it a variable that we can change. And we'll say 0. There we go. And then public functions that we want to have. Maybe give the constructor and give it a body and say num equals n. There we go. And we might want to say we might give our actor the functions jump and shoot and fire and melee attack. So let's go do that. I need to know how to spell swap weapon. That's not how you write swap weapon, right? Yeah, English not my first language. Okay, swap weapon. And lastly, we had jump, fire gun, oh yeah, melee attack. Although I could write fire gun as ranged attack, but it doesn't really matter at the moment. So here we'll cut this out and we'll say jumping, and this one was fire gun, and this one was swap weapon. So now we can do two things. Now we have our our actor logic set up, and now we need to be able to move our character. Let's say In this case, we want to have be able to move our character, but our character is not always going to be the same. Let's say our AI wants to move our character as well. He won't be getting any input. So by passing in the game object we want to move, we can say, let's say like this, game actor A and game actor B. Yeah, of course we have to give it a value. Let's say this one's 1 and this one is 2. Okay, so now when we want to move, we can just pass in A, and there we go. So these two will be B. There we go. Now we need to know who it is we're playing. So moving, so we might as well add that in right now. So in this case would be, there we go. And it'll be something like this. Now we'll be able to see who it is we're moving. Oh wait, we'll still have to add in this. So this guy is going to jump, and this one's going to fire his gun. And this one's going to swap the weapon. A lot of typing. And of course, when you do this in your game, it's going to be a lot more complicated than I am showing in this example. But they should get the point across. Okay, so let's run it. So, if we press A button, we're firing. Character 1 is shooting. And our B, jumping. Character 1 is jumping. But if I go X, character 2 is punching. And character 2 is swapping his weapon and punching at the same time. So now we've basically bound certain buttons to certain characters really easily. And this is kind of how the command pattern works. You kind of obfuscate your key bindings to a character. And this could work with pretty much anything. So let's say you have, I don't know, a button on screen, and it needs to be able to do different functions. Let's say you have like a skill button down here on the screen. If you click it, it has to do one function, and if you wanted to have it do something else, you can rebind it and have it do something else. Of course, we can expand this even further, and I wrote a little example earlier that goes over this. So let's see. So we have our game character, and we can move its position, and it will keep track of its current position and its previous position. But in this case, we have a new function, which is execute and undo. So yeah, we can create a move command. We can basically keep track of its old position and its new position. Of course, keep track of the actor we're actually moving. And we basically tell the actor to move to a certain place. All speaks for itself. If we do undo, we move to the old position. And yeah, we keep a queue of the commands we've made before. We set the position to 0, which is actually the center of the console screen, just to make it a little bit simple. And we have a maximum number of commands. So let's run it. and you can see the cursor is in the center, and we can move to the left and it won't go, and we can, let me see, what was the undo command? Oh yeah, of course, the U. So we can undo our movements and go back and to the right, go back to the first movement. So in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about flyweight. And if you have any questions for this tutorial, you can go down in the comment section, and down below the video I also have a link to where you can download the code if you are too lazy to type it yourself. So see you next time.